Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Thais Vilela and I'm an environmental economist. In today's lecture we will continue our discussion on the macroeconomic fundamentals of environmental economics. We will focus on common resources and the tragedy of the commons. So remember from our previous lecture that a good is defined as a common good or common resource if it is non-excludable, meaning that you can't easily stop people from using this resource, and if it is rivalrous, if I use it, then there is less of the good for you to use or consume. The example we gave last time was a fishing ground without regulations. We cannot stop people from going there and fish. But if someone catches a fish, then no one can catch that specific fish. What is happening here is that each fisher receives the full private benefit of catching a fish, but shares the cost of stock depletion with everyone else, so individuals have an incentive to overfish. When many individuals act this way, the resource becomes overexploited, leading to the tragedy of the commons. In other words, the tragedy of the commons arises because open access to a rival resource leads to overuse in the absence of regulation or well-defined property rights. The classic example of the tragedy of the commons that you will find in all or in most textbooks is the open pasture one. In this example, we have a situation in which the pasture is open. There is no fences or gates. It is difficult in this case to prevent herders from bringing their cows there. But when cow eats the grass, that specific grass is gone. The resource is limited, so if too many cows eat the grass at the same time, the stock of the resource, the grass, will end. To go a little deeper, let's understand the rationality behind this behavior. When the pasture is green and without many cows using it, a single herder thinks about adding a cow to the pasture. By adding this cow, the herder will gain the full economic value of the new cow, meat, milk, or simply the sale price. In this situation, the cost is the slight degradation of the grass. But at this point, the cost is very small because there is still a lot of green spaces. And additionally, the cost of the damage caused is paid by all herders using the pasture. Since the benefit is greater, the private benefit is greater than the cost, it makes sense for the herder to add this one cow to the pasture. The problem arises because everyone follows the same individual logic. So each herder adds a new cow to the pasture, adding up to the negative impacts caused by one cow. Because no one owns the field, no one has a personal incentive to protect it for the long term. Everyone wants to get theirs before the grass is gone. As a result, the grass is at some point depleted. So even though the herders are rational individuals, they have created an outcome that is collectively irrational. Here we have a real world example highlighted in the news in 2014. Although the article is not recent, it illustrates a common resource problem that still persists today. The common resource in this case is the high seas, which are marine areas beyond national jurisdiction. Because these waters do not fall under any country's control, they effectively have no owner. And as a result, the high seas are non-excludable. No single authority can prevent countries or firms from accessing them. At the same time, they are rival the extraction of fish, minerals, and other resources by one user reduces what is available to others. And empirical studies show that many resources in the high seas are being overexploited, leading to stock depletion and ecosystem degradation. This situation raises fundamental governance questions. Who is responsible for managing these resources? Who bears the cost of environmental damage? And to whom should compensation be paid? In the absence of clear property rights or effective regulation, individual users have incentives to extract as much as possible, generating a classic trash of the commons. Efforts to address this problem rely on international cooperation and multilateral agreements such as the High Seas Treaty, which seeks to establish rules for conservation, including the creation of marine protected areas, requirements for environmental impact assessments, and mechanisms for international cooperation. By introducing collective management and shared responsibilities, the treaty attempts to reduce open access exploitation and mitigate the overuse of high seas resources, but enforcement and coordination remain major challenges. So I know that I have briefly mentioned in the previous slide some ways to stop the common resources problem. Here we are going to see this in more details. There are two primary economic ways we can use to solve the common resource problem. First, regulation through price or quantity. Think of this as the government stepping in as a manager. They can use prices like charging a license fee or a tax to use the resource. Or they can set quotas, limiting exactly how much each person can take, for example, a catch limit for fish. To find these prices and catch limits, we economists use models to find the socially optimal point where we can use the resources without depleting it. The second way is establishing property rights. The tragedy happens because everyone owns it, so no one owns it. By turning a common resource into private property, the owner now has a direct incentive to protect it. If you own the lake, you won't let people overfish it because you want fish to be there next year and the following year. The challenge here is choosing the right tool, and this will depend on the resource. It's easy to fence off a piece of land, but how do you fence off the open ocean or the air we breathe? In those cases, regulation is often the solution chosen. So the big takeaway I want you to have is this: when a resource belongs to everyone, it's very easy for nobody to feel responsible for it. Whether we are talking about a small pond with a few fish or the entire Earth's atmosphere, the logic stays the same. But as we discussed, we aren't stuck. We have tools. We can use economic models to figure out the right prices or the right quantities to keep things sustainable. Or we can look at property rights to give people a real reason to protect what they use. It is not always a perfect fix. Like I said earlier, it's a lot easier to put a fence around a field than is to put one around a river. But understanding these trade-offs is the first step to making sure these resources are still around for the next generation. I hope this helped you finally get what the Treasure of the Commons is all about. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video in which we will review the main concepts so far, focusing on the solutions available. Bye.